Welcome to We Are Venomaniacs, the Venom Site's official podcast for all of your symbiote news, reviews, and point of views. My name is Orion, and I'm joined by my fellow co-hosts Carlos
Yo.
and Tyler.
Heyo.
Aaron might jump in at some point, but we'll go ahead and start without him, and we'll catch him up once he's on. So today we'll be reviewing the symbiote comics of August 2021, including Extreme Carnage, Lasher, and Riot, and the final issue of Spider-Man Spider Shadow. Plus, we're going to go over some of the news from the new Venom series in October. So let's go ahead and start with Extreme Carnage, Lasher. We pick up from the cliffhanger at the end of the Phage issue, with Phage impaling Andy, but of course she's not so easily killed thanks to her Hellmark powers. Agent Venom, Anti-Venom rather, attempts to draw Phage away from Andy, but Alchemex's guardsmen drop in to apprehend the symbiotes. In the ensuing chaos between Phage and the guardsmen, Flash takes the wounded Andy and finds Dr. Steven, who merges the remnants of the Scream symbiote with anti-venom antibodies to save the symbiote. And when Andy bonds the new amalgam, she transforms into Silence. Silence single-handedly drives Phage off using her anti-venom powers, leaving her and Flash alone in Alchemax. Meanwhile, we find that the Lasher symbiote bonded to a new host, a hospitalized old man suffering from dementia. As with his other siblings, Lasher fails Carnage's call through the hive and from a broadcast of Senator Crane's anti-alien speech, and begins to go on a rampage. Carnage uses a vision of the host's wife to compel him to come to Carnage, while Lasher tries to resist his siblings' call. Lasher eventually makes his way to the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., and releases his dead host. In his final moments, the old man is thanked by Carnage for helping him bring his family together, and, in turn, helps reunite the old man with his family in the afterlife. So, this was a very, according to the writer Clay Chapman, this was a very personal issue for him, considering I believe it was his own father who had issues similar to the one as the character he wrote for Lasher. And I think that really translated well with this issue, just, this fear of losing one's memories and everything, and that really translated well in this issue.
Yeah, no, Clay once again he did a great job on this issue. The writing was really solid, and I didn't know about that, but yeah, I'm glad that he was able to touch more about the whole subject. So that was good to see. So yeah.
Yeah, I especially appreciate it because my own family has a history of our family members suffering from dementia, so it struck a chord for me at least. But I think it really translated well what he was trying to get across.
No, absolutely. For me, even though I love Flash and Scream and whatnot, the Lasher part was probably my favorite part of the issue. It was just brutal. It really was. It was just so and this poor old man just being misguided and manipulated by Carnage, and it was really good.
Yep, and
I mean,
and
from what
also
I've
the
seen
design.
too, like Lasher, he kind of showed resilience in a way, right? Because he didn't really like he. It felt like he didn't want to be a part of Carnage's reunion.
No, absolutely. It's sort of unique to Lasher compared to all the other symbiotes so far. Lasher's like, I ain't doing this shit, Carnage. Just piss off. I really like that fact that they are giving the symbiotes different personalities, and I've always sort of been been a fan of Lasher because he always had a bit more of a unique design along with Scream, and so it's kind of cool that he's getting some character in this.
Yeah, I especially like his character design in this one. We've seen the Lasher character. I mean, all of the different Foundation symbiote characters get visual upgrades over the past couple of years. With the Absolute Carnage, and then now with this Extreme Carnage series, we're seeing new design upgrades. Although mostly it's been these Life Foundation symbiotes getting Carnage added into the mix. But I really liked the design that they employed with Lasher in this issue. very unique.
I will say though, if there was anything I was disappointed about the Lasher story, is that it didn't feel connected to the first other half of the story, because I feel like, Phage and Scream were both obviously very heavily integrated into the main plot, I guess you would say. But then Lasher was kind of like, this could have been if there had been a completely separate Lasher book and just more of this, I could have seen that. But it's just like Lasher doesn't interact with any of the characters other than Carnage, but it's sort of like a separate talk with Carnage that's going on. Like it's not really cohesive with the book at all. Like it's not a huge deal, but it's just, I feel like the book does it keeps switching back and forth between the two perspectives constantly, and it's not really needed.
Yeah.
So
I just feel like that could have probably been incorporated a little bit smoother.
Yeah.
Did you guys get a sense that it was kind of like just, I don't know, like just going at a fast pace? Like, okay, we got to cut to this. Okay, now we got to go to here. This part of the book, that sort of thing.
I wouldn't say fast paced, but just because, I mean, I sort of understand that just because it was sort of telling two separate stories in one book, like continuing the story from before and also introducing Lasher for his story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think there was a problem with the pacing. And, we're going to see this again in the next issue we talk about, Riot, where, the two narratives going on and they seem to be completely separated from one another. So I think what it's really building to is in at least, if not the Toxin and Agony issues, then definitely in the Omega issue, we're going to see all this finally come together. And from a preview we saw for a Scotty Young variant cover, I believe for the Omega issue, there might be hints of a new kind of hybrid amalgam coming with a Carnage thrown in. So we don't know.
I wouldn't be surprised.
It was kind of played off as a joke on the cover, but who knows? It might actually be something we see.
Yeah, but I mean, you think about it. In basically every single story with the Life Foundation symbiotes of the last 10 years, there's always been a moment when they have become hybrid.
Yeah.
So, time to fuse.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. And then we can go ahead and talk about the big reveal of this issue. Andy becoming Silence. And
he doesn't die, yay!
And from what we see,
we knew Andy wasn't gonna die.
Yeah, of course. She's become this huge character now in symbiote lore. Like she's really risen in the ranks, and I honestly, I've said this on here and probably on Twitter as well, but not to dethrone Eddie Brock, but she's become my favorite symbiote host. Just her entire story is amazing.
No,
yeah.
I definitely agree with you. Like Andy's become one of my favorite characters at Marvel. Like, no contest. And it's just here's the thing. I like that obviously, she gets to be a symbiote character again. Like I don't want Andy on her own with just the demon powers. I obviously want her to have a symbiote. And Science is cool to see. I'm still hoping it's just a temporary power up and she goes back to Scream. I don't know if that's the case. Like, I'm waiting to see how things play out. But right now, I just love what Clay did with Scream and Andy's relationship so much. And with Silent Symbiote technically being a new symbiote, like, I am glad that it's not just a brand new spawn symbiote and it's more of a fusion. It's more of still Scream is sort of technically in there, which is blended with Anti-Venom, but it does seem like a new personality a little. And so I'm worried about missing the relationship Andy had with Scream. And so, yeah, I'm hoping, ideally for me, she would go back to Scream by the end of this. Like, she uses up all the Anti-Venom to beat Carnage, but then it goes back to Scream at the end. But if we are, I don't want to say stuck with Silence because that makes it sound bad, but if Silence is the new status quo for Andy, I will deal with it. And it's just I wish she was still Scream. That's all.
Yeah.
As for me, I was going to say Andy, I've loved her ever since she first appeared when Colin Bunn was on the book, and now that when she became Scream, that was really great too. But now seeing this new version of her called Silence, I totally love the look. Even though it's pretty much a repaint. I'm not gonna lie, it is a repaint, except she doesn't have a mouth. The design looks great. Like I'm all for it. Um, do I miss the Scream color scheme with the yellow and orange and red? Yeah, of course. But again, like Andy, she's been through a lot, and she really wants to get payback and team. And I'm really glad she's back with Flash. That was really good, finally cool to see. So
Yeah, so I'm kind of like on the fence when it comes to whether I want her to go back to being Scream or stay as Silence, because I do agree that I don't like how quickly we've been switched from Scream to Silence, and how that might affect the developments between her and Scream. But then again, I don't want Silence to be just a temporary one-off thing, and I don't like this whole flip-flopping with Andy saying, okay, she was first Mania, then she wasn't, and then she became Scream, and now she's not again.
that's a whole nother
It's
can of worms.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like it's just back and forth, back and forth. I'm like, okay, just stick with one and go with it. But it's a very interesting evolution for her, because I mean, even looking at the symbiote names themselves, she started out as Mania, then she became Scream, and then now she's finally Silence. So it's a kind of evolution for a thematic evolution for her character. So I really like that part of it.
What I got from two is like, I don't like, it was kind of like when she became Scream, right? Like they had a mutual, like a great relationship with Scream and Andy, and then they fought Carnage and Absolute Carnage in that series, and then we fast forward all the way till now, and all of a sudden, Carnage, he's starting to take control of Scream, and Scream wants to be taking control, and I don't know where that whole change of mind came from, and then when she became Silent, it's like she felt distracted from all the voices in her head, and now with this new power up as Silence, like all that's gone now she can actually fight like unchained, like it's just
And because she's disconnected from the hive,
disconnected
mostly.
from. Yeah.
Yeah, which we'll learn about in the next issue. But yeah. So this, I love that Andy has become just this dark horse main character in this entire event. Like it's like not to diss you Flash fans, but kind of going into this event, you kind of had this feeling of, oh, this is going to be a Flash Thompson event, where we're seeing, this is his first major story after he's been resurrected in King of Black and all that. But all of a sudden, it's now like Andy has really taken the spotlight, which I'm just happy about because I love her
Yeah.
character. So I'm satisfied right now with where the story is going.
No, yeah, this is a Flash and Andy event. It really is, and I'm all here. I'm here for it. I'm absolutely loving this.
We've been waiting for so long, and it's
Pretty
finally
much.
here. Yeah.
So let's go ahead and jump on to the next issue, because we'd like to talk more about Andy and Flash.
Yes, yeah. Speaking of,
Yeah. So with Extreme Carnage Riot, we begin with Flash's pal Hank, who he's sent to spy on Senator Crane. Crane assigns Hank with picking up an MVP for his next big speech. Then next we see the Riot symbiote aboard a charter bus in Chicago. Under Carnage's influence, Riot goes on a slaughter spree with the bus's passengers in search of a suitable host, eventually settling upon one as the bus arrives in DC, where Hank is waiting to pick him up. Meanwhile, Flash and Andy finally enjoy a proper, heartfelt reunion after Andy, as Silence, drove Phage away from Alchemax. They retreat from Alchemax before more guardsmen show up and plan their next move against Carnage's scheme at a coffee shop. Flash figures that they can use Silence to isolate Carnage from the Hive, but when Andy attempts to access the Hive, she finds herself completely disconnected somehow. Eventually, she finds someone she can connect with, drawing Bren Waters as Toxin to join her and Flash. So
Toxin, baby.
yeah.
Mhm.
Now we did. It was funny because this whole, it was that with this issue they said, oh, it was Silence who called upon Toxin and all that, but in the Lasher issue, we do get a brief scene with Brenton Waters at his home, watching TV, and all of a sudden he sees a report about, the guardsmen engaging with aliens at Alchemax, and of course his father is a guardsman soldier. And so he takes off with Toxin with concern for his father. So it's like we have kind of two little conflicting points here of why, what motivates Toxin to join the battle. But I guess we can overlook that.
I mean, he's got to help his dad. He thinks his dad's in trouble.
Yeah. But so we can keep talking about Andy and Flash, and it's
Best moment ever.
Yeah, it's
Best page.
It's just great, this reunion together.
Yeah, because technically, last issue was when they finally like the last issue was the full. They were talking together. Well, I mean, not really. It's just she was like bleeding out.
Mm-hmm.
But and so this is the first proper reunion we get. It's not just in the middle of a fight where they're fighting for their lives. Like, oh hey Andy, so that page with them hugging is just so good.
It had to happen.
And I felt like, Andy's entire struggle throughout her tenure here at Marvel was really validated in one panel where Flash tells her that you're much stronger than you think you are. Carnage won't know what hit him. It's just, that one moment was like, that's what I've been waiting for, because, Andy has really been through the grinder emotionally and physically, and, she's had a lot of, self-doubt about herself in her corner of the world. She's had issues with family and friends dying or being killed, and her life has just been upended. But finally, Flash tells her, hey, you basically, you don't have to feel this down. You are as strong as you're much stronger than you think. And I love that about this particular little interaction.
Yeah, this was really long overdue, because again, Andy has been through a lot of hell for the past few years, especially when Absolute Carnage was going on. So it's great to see them back together.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, and this is Alyssa Wong's only her second symbiote thing ever. Like, she did the one short story she did the Carnage pirate story, right?
Yes.
I believe. And so so this is our first main 616 symbiote story with her, and I thought she did a great job.
Oh yeah.
This is I haven't really read anything else. I think she mostly does Dr. Aphra stuff in Star Wars. So I'm all for it if we get another new symbiote writer because Clay turned out great, and this is a very strong start for her.
Mm-hmm.
And plus I also liked, we didn't mention it last issue, but the art, we mentioned the art for the Lasher part, how it was really horrific and whatnot with the tendrils and spikes, but obviously the Scream artist who continued on into that issue, still fantastic. I love how Silence looks. Mm-hmm. And then in this we have much more stylized art. I can't remember the name of the artist. I don't have it in front of me right now, but it's a very stylized look that I thought was very fitting, and I really did like it. It's some of my favorite panels are where Andy is taking the symbiote off her head, and you see the tendrils around her neck and whatnot, and she's a big smile, and the hug was so good. So yeah, I really like this art, and it was cool to see.
I only had one nitpick about the art, and it's that I felt like the artist drew Andy too young for how old she actually is in the comics.
Yeah, that's fair. She's definitely aged quite a bit in the last few years, so
yeah.
it did seem like he was going off some old references.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy with the her original hairstyle kind of making a comeback, but I just felt like she just felt a little too young in this issue.
Yeah. Yeah, with her hair, she decided, you know what, new symbiote, I'll go back to my old hair, and she just shapeshifted into the longer hair.
Yeah. I mean, granted, the new artists don't realize the time frame, so I could let it slide. So
yeah,
with the consistency, so yeah.
And then, of course, we have Riot's whole little story, and I think this one was really just played up for laughs. Just him going, host to host throughout the bus, slaughtering, saying it basically was like he was Goldilocks and just going through, this one's too big, too small, whatever.
Yeah,
just
right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And are we still theorizing about who is Carnage in this story? Because we kind of get a bit of a hint with what's his name, Hank, in his observations of Senator Crane about how really just strange this Crane character is. How he doesn't blink or anything like that. So it's like, are we thinking that maybe Carnage is Crane, or are we still thinking it's the dog?
Well, see, the implication the whole time has definitely been that Carnage is Crane, but I'm not sure because it feels like it's hard to say that he's not at this point. But at the same time, there's something ominous about the dog. I'm still kind of betting Carnage. I almost feel like Carnage might be in the dog, but he's still puppeting Crane. Like Crane might just be an empty meat puppet at this point.
Yeah.
And he just speaking through him, and because I remember Carnage was when Carnage was making his way over in the Alpha issue, his bodies weren't lasting long, right?
Yeah.
So maybe the dog is more resilient, and so he's just staying inside the dog and puppeting Crane. That's the only thing I can think of, because Crane is definitely being nefarious, telling him to go pick up Mr. Riot, which is not ominous, not a weird name at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, so. Also, I'm very glad that Hank just didn't go look on that bus. He just there's just nobody left alive on that bus behind him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was kind of throughout this series, I thought they were going to hint at the possibility of Carnage trying to look or trying to find who has his dead corpse stored in a laboratory facility, and we haven't had any indication of that. So. I don't know how
his normal body
or regenerate it. I don't know.
I don't think Carnage needs Cletus's body anymore. I think they are so perfectly bonded together that they are just one and the same. It doesn't matter if Cletus has a physical body; he is Carnage.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and but overall, I thought it was definitely a good issue. Probably my main complaint with that, it doesn't. It's not filler, but it's definitely a little more rising action. It's the big phage fight last issue, and this is just a lot of talking, setup, planning. It doesn't exactly move the plot forward, but at the same time, I think it is some necessary setup. You have to do. We get that reunion, which I wanted so bad. I love that. You introduce Riot, and then you have Andy's thing with the Hive not working, and then bringing Toxin at the end. So it definitely was more setup, but I think it was necessary setup.
Now, the whole Silence not being connected to the Hive thing is going to be interesting, because as far as we know, the only other symbiote who is not connected to the Hive is Venom. So now we have another symbiote, and I wonder how that will play out in future stories.
Yeah, no, it's... Well, she's mostly not connected to the Hive because of the anti-venom, right? But I think enough of her symbiote was still left of Scream that she was just barely able to contact Toxin because he was close. Is that the implication I was getting? Where she still barely has because it was causing her strain, but they did manage to call Toxin.
Yeah, probably. But it's just interesting if they're going to.
It also does raise the question: why can't Flash do it? Because we haven't really got any solid answers on his symbiote.
Yeah.
They're being intentionally vague about it, and I just want a solid answer. But
I think
because it seems like they sort of want it both ways. We're all right, he's not a normal symbiote, but also he's not anti-venom anymore.
Yeah, it was very confusing because in this issue when or was it? No, it wasn't this issue. It was in the Lasher issue when Dr. Stevens was explaining how he combined the antivenom bodies with the Scream symbiote. He referred to the antivenom antibodies as Flash's symbiote. So, that kind of brought up the whole thing of, well, at what point did did Dr. Stevens have a sample of Flash's symbiote? So either he probably never took a sample of Flash's current
His current
symbiote.
one.
So he must have just had one on ice, but that's still
Yeah, because we did see that in like the King of Black Cat book, where he gave her a part of the anti venom, and so I assume he just does have some samples of it.
Yeah,
of the old one, not the current one.
Of course, that still doesn't answer the question of what is Flash's current symbiote, because as far as we know, it is just the dragon symbiote that he piloted in King of Black.
And not to mention, we had the whole literal dragon Flash, his in what was it, Phage books?
I think so. Yeah,
the Phage book.
Yeah,
where he had a dragon form and whatnot. So it very much seems like there's definitely some sort of dragon symbiote in there still.
And we still haven't seen.
I want to see it.
Yeah, we still haven't seen Flash really affect symbiotes like he would if he was wearing the anti-venom symbiote.
Because otherwise you think he just would have done what Silence did, right?
Yeah.
So he was just like shooting Phage and whatnot. So I'm assuming, I still think plus we had that weird line about Phage Carnage said like he's just wearing like a shade of a symbiote. Mm-hmm. So maybe it is a dragon symbiote, but there's no mind in it because this dragon has given up its mind to Flash when when Flash took over the symbiote.
Yeah.
So that's a possibility. Maybe that's why he's not connected to the Hive anymore, because it's just Flash in there.
I just hope
he's got a brain dead symbiote. Maybe I don't know.
I just hope they don't hand wave and say no. This is the anti-venom symbiote. Like no. I don't want that. I don't want Flash. Yeah. It wouldn't make any sense. Like why hasn't Flash been helping then? So which then also brings up my whole point of Flash needs a new hero name now since he's not anti-venom.
Well, that's why we should just call him Agent Venom. I'm just saying.
It's not even Venom though. No.
It's fine.
It's
too confusing.
You'll have Venom and then you'll have Agent Venom. It's fine. It's a separate name.
But although I really would like to see that dragon form again. If he uses an Omega, that'll be pretty cool.
Oh, so, he's gotta use it for the big fight.
Yeah.
All right.
So Extreme Carnage still very good.
Oh yeah,
very good.
And we only have 3 issues left. We have Toxin, Agony, and Omega. And it's all next month too, so it's gonna be fun. All right, so lastly in our review series, we have Spider-Man, Spider Shadow number 5, the final issue. So in this epic finale, Peter faces down against Venomized Avengers and as a Venomized Reed Richards chases after Mary Jane and Johnny Storm, intent on killing the only person standing between the symbiote and Peter from realizing Spider-Man's dream. As Venom and the Avengers are distracted with trying to kill MJ, Peter devises a plan to stop Venom and destroy its spawn. Peter attempts to lure the symbiote into bonding with him again, but the symbiote kills Reed Richards before leaving him, as Reed, in its mind, is too smart to let live and allow him to find a way to stop the symbiote's plans. Peter lures the symbiote into the Fantastic Four's lab and allows the symbiote to bond to him. However, Peter bursts into flames, revealing that the Human Torch was disguised in an illusion as Peter Parker. The symbiote is destroyed, leaving in its wake a trail of misery and death. Then, in the end, Peter faces trial for his crimes but is found not guilty. He's invited by Sue Storm to join the Fantastic Four as a means of atoning for his mistakes. In an epilogue, we also see that the Kingpin had somehow survived his encounter with symbiote Spider-Man, although he's scarred and vengeful. His assistant Wesley offers Wilson a chance to recover and get vengeance on Spider-Man, revealing that he has a surviving offspring of the deceased symbiote, and it kind of looks like Carnage. So, this story really went places, didn't it?
Well, I was about to say, it went in a different, like halfway through, it went in a vastly different direction than what I expected.
Yeah.
Not to say I didn't like it, but it's just not what I was expecting, which isn't a bad thing. It's just, it was still an enjoyable read. I was just sort of expecting something a little different.
Yeah. At least, I feel like Zdarsky didn't really fail in the sense that, he didn't make the symbiote really that evil. He kind of tried to hammer the point home that the symbiote, has all these good intentions. He wants to help Peter realize his dream of protecting the world, and that's why he's doing all this stuff. But he kind of loses some of that when the symbiote kills Reed Richards. Like, okay, well, you kind of crossed the line there.
Yeah, but I think it was just a fact that it had taken Peter's emotions from when he was like, after Aunt May died and whatnot, and just started killing villains, and it was sort of stuck with those at that point.
Yeah.
Like, because then it separated from Peter before he could like come to regret everything, and so this was essentially a darker form of Peter that it had absorbed, and it was just sort of stuck with that. So it was part that and part its own self-preservation. And so I think that's why, like, it definitely is a little bit more evil than it probably should be for that, but I understand the context. I think it still makes sense.
Yeah. And Zdarsky successfully killed the Venom symbiote in this one, in the end.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little, like, would you want to see more of this book with a Carnage Kingpin versus Fantastic Four with Spider-Man? Like, does that interest you?
I'm a bit half and half there.
Yeah, I think I'm in a very similar boat. Where first off, I'd kind of prefer if it was still the Venom symbiote, and it was never really confirmed. Like, is this Carnage or is it just like another one of those symbiote copies that the symbiote did?
Yeah, it looks like Carnage to us because of the color scheme, but it's not. It's not obvious.
Yeah, and at the same time, I kind of wish it was anyone but Kingpin. Like, because we had the Eddie Brock there, and then he's sort of just done after his whole thing with the Sinister Six.
No, I like Eddie Brock's whole story in this one. I love it. I love the...
it was awesome to see him and whatnot, but
I love the dynamic.
Kind of just dropped halfway through, is my problem.
I just like, because we do get to see a little, not really closure, but we do get to see an end to Eddie Brock's part in the story, and it's a continuation of the dynamic that Zdarsky set up between Eddie Brock and J. Jonah Jameson. I love that, Jameson has, kind of come to Brock's side and said, "Hey, listen, we were both wrong, Jameson's coming to terms with his feelings for Spider-Man now that he knows who Spider-Man is and what Peter Parker has done. And he's like, I was wrong. And then he's also trying to help Eddie not go down the same path that he does go in, the regular universe, and say, hey, listen, you made some mistakes, but I'm here for you. I'll help you as best as I can to, redeem yourself and all that. And I felt like, Eddie Brock, there was a glimmer of hope there for him.
I don't know. Just a quick question to you guys. Would have preferred, instead of that ending with Kingpin, would you prefer if the symbiote somehow made its way to Brock again? Just because, or just have something, a better outcome for Eddie?
See, I am happy with, this different take on Eddie, but I'm disappointed that he was brought up in this alternate symbiote story, and he wasn't really involved with the symbiote at all. Like, he just became Doc Ock for a little bit with arms, and then, I don't know, I just kind of wanted him more involved with the actual symbiote somehow, or even just an epilogue with him I think would have been cool. Like, you could get a different version of Venom in this. It'd be based on both their experiences, like if the symbiote survived and went to Eddie, and after Eddie had sort of like, after Jonah talked to him or something, I'd be interested to see what sort of different variation of Venom we would have gotten out of that. And I think that would have been interesting.
I'm kind of happy that Eddie didn't become Venom in this story, just because we kind of got a bit of Venom with Spider-Man when he kind of went off the rails with the symbiote.
It's like, how different would it have been if, like, what's the difference, right? It would have been very minuscule. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, wasn't the original pitch like, what if Spider-Man was Venom? So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, this was essentially Spider-Man's Venom.
Yeah.
And
but
yeah, no, it just, the story went in directions I wasn't expecting. There was some clever twists with like Human Torch and whatnot, but I did feel like another thing that was kind of underutilized was the symbiote heroes that sort of just briefly had it, and then
Mm-hmm.
they were just like kind of lame designs. It was just like barely any. It was basically them just with like evil eyes and faces.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that was a
that's
little
about it.
disappointing. And then another small very minor complaint. The colorist, Mary Jane, like she's supposed to be drawn with like a dark red hair, and but sometimes half of the panels she just has black hair. It's just straight up black. They didn't add a red shine to or anything. It's just black hair, and it's like that's not Mary Jane. Like who is this person?
Yeah.
So,
But
but
yeah,
other than that, the art was strong, and it's been a very nice style for the whole tone of the book.
yeah. Yeah, I would say overall for this little mini series, um, I liked the first half. I definitely liked the first half of showing, Spider-Man going off the rails with the symbiote, and him having to come to face his demons and realize, well, what have I done and all that. I don't. I kind of clocked out when the symbiote survived its initial
And
conflagration
went on read.
and went on read. I was like, okay. I was like, we're gonna do a symbiote invasion. They're gonna create, symbiote clones and all that. It's like, that's where I kind
Yeah,
of like,
we've
goodbye.
seen shades of that before. So
Yeah. So
I will say I think Zdarsky's life story had a much stronger ending than this. Like that was a very self-contained. You had the beginning, the ending, and then you even had the really nice moment with the symbiote at the end, helping save Peter. Well, helping Peter save the world or whatever.
mhm.
And so, and in this, it's definitely not as strong. And plus, not to mention, wasn't this was supposed to be 4 issues and was suddenly 5 issues, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm very curious as to what happened there. Like, was the Fantastic Four thing always the plan, or was that like a switch at halfway through? So,
Yeah.
because I could have seen this wrapping up like an issue sooner. I could like if you didn't have
Yeah,
it go on Reed, if it went on someone else and then they just had a fight with him for like 1 issue, I could have seen that. So, like for all
yeah.
we know, maybe Eddie was supposed to become Venom,
Yeah.
and but then he decided to switch it off.
That could be the
So,
case. I have a feeling, but
So
we'll never know.
so overall, I I would say that it was a fun experiment, but I don't want to see it continued. I don't want to see
yeah,
Venom
I don't
and
necessarily
everything.
need more of this universe. I want to see more of the What If imprint, and I think we are getting more. I think it's been confirmed already,
Yeah,
but I don't need to see more of this universe with Peter and the Fantastic Four.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, I will ask. It's like I really, for What If, I really want them to do a What if they did David's original pitch for She Venom.
Oh, you want to see the original She Venom?
Yes,
No,
yeah,
that'd be cool.
that would
That's
be
a good What
a
If.
really good What If. Yeah.
Kind of working on that
What,
myself.
what about you there? So that's taken. Orion, you give us a symbiote What If of any sort of symbiote What If. What do you
Oh
think you'd do?
man, any sort of what if? Oh shoot, put me on the spot. I have plenty of ideas, but I gotta pick one.
Yeah, we got to pick one. You got to give us like a 1 sentence pitch
Oh,
or
okay, okay, okay.
question
No,
pitch.
no,
I should.
because I've actually already written a single issue of this. But what if Peter Parker became Venom instead of Spider-Man? So instead of him getting bitten by a radioactive spider and becoming Spider-Man, we switched up his origin story, and instead he
So
bonds
you
to the
just give them
symbiote.
the symbiote before anything.
Yep.
Oh,
And
a symbiote, a story where a symbiote hangs down, gets hit by radiation, and bites Peter.
or if the radioactive spider bit Eddie Brock. Oh, I don't know. That would be so weird. That would be so weird.
yeah,
I'm doing a story for the Daily Globe. Ah, a spider.
yeah. But I already wrote a comic script for that, and it's pretty dark because I kind of take the when I came up with the concept, it was kind of during the time of the whole uh, school shootings and everything in the U.S. And so I kind of took that idea. I'm like, okay, well, here you have a troubled kid, Peter Parker, and he's bullied at school, and perhaps, and I changed it a little bit about his home life is not as great either, and what happens when you give this kid a gun, basically.
Yeah, the
So.
symbiote gun. And speaking of symbiote guns, that'd be my pitch. What if Flash dated Agent Venom? Easy peasy. It'd be that's the good universe.
How about you, Carlos?
Yeah.
What's your what if?
Well, he already said with his.
Well, yeah, I know. I would really like it if they did a what if on David Michelini's original Venom pitch. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh yeah.
So that's Spider Shadow.
Yeah, that's our comics for the week or month, I should say.
For the month, yep. So next up, we got a little bit more news recently.
Oh, and I should say we're still not reviewing Symbiote Spider-Man. We're still not doing it. It's we got a tiny little bit of Symbiote in it, and then that was it. So we don't care. It's bad.
I haven't even
read bad.
It.
You should feel bad, Peter David.
All right, so yeah, we got some recent comic news for the new Venom series coming in October. It was an interview with the writers Al Ewing and Ram V. And we learned some more about how the story is going to be written. So basically what's happening is Eddie and Dylan's stories will be divided between both writers. The first 2 issues will feature both writers handling their stories, and then in the 3rd issue it will break out to one writer handling their side of the story, and it'll switch off, apparently. Ewing is going to be handling Eddie Brock's story as he's a symbiote god and going out into space and all that stuff. And then Ram V is going to be handling Dylan and Venom's story. And we also got a little more insight into Dylan and Venom's relationship, and it's kind of not looking great.
Oh boy.
Yeah, we seem to be regressing a bit with Venom becoming a bit more savage and uncontrollable.
Controlling.
Yeah. So, not... we had the Free Comic Book Day preview issue last month, and I was whelmed with it. I was like, it didn't strike a chord with me. And then this recent news about...
Did we talk about that on podcast?
Yes, we did.
We did, right?
Oh, we did?
We did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's how much of an impression it left.
Yeah, it's like I'm hoping I'll be wrong, and this
look.
New
I'm just here for Big Mother, all right?
Lord.
Yeah,
she coming.
But yeah, so it's like, it's this back. It's like, why? And I think it's also because we saw a variant cover for, I think it was issue 1, maybe. It was some sort of variant cover for one of their Stormbreaker artists, or whatever they call their batch of
trigger warning incoming
artists. And it was a Venom cover with Venom, but on it it's calling Venom a super villain. I'm like, oh, you gotta be kidding me!
No, wrong, 0.
It's just a variant.
Change it.
Eddie Brock did not save the universe from Null just to be called a supervillain. That's just...
Well, he's always an anti-hero. He's the god. He's the god of symbiotes. He's a hero.
Yes, he has not been a villain for a long time now.
Yeah, long time.
So that's kind of my fear with this series, is that they're catering to this fan base that still believes Venom to be a villain.
I don't know. I don't see that as catering to this fan base. I think it's just a variant. They have because it's like based on the old trading cards, right? Again,
well, no,
the label.
I'm not talking just about the variant. I'm talking about also this whole regression thing in the story with Venom.
Oh yeah.
It's like, are you really going to make him, quote unquote, evil again, just to satisfy those people who believe he's still a villain?
Don't think they're making him evil. I think he might get a little edgier because of Dylan, just absorbing that from him, and which is just another reason to not like the edginess of Dylan.
Well, this is what I don't get. It's like, okay, well, in the Free Comic Book Day issue, we're kind of getting the sense that Dylan is growing. That he's growing now. He's becoming more of an older adult teenager by the looks of it.
I like how people said on the cover, it just looks like Flash. It just looks like Flash on the cover.
and now they're giving this hint is that the Venom Simi is going to start getting more aggressive, more agile because of Dylan's moods, and and even the free comic book day, she's like, "Stop telling me what to do. Shut up. I don't want to hear it." It's like, oh my god! But after all that stuff we went through in King in Black, and then the finale in 200, the Venom Symbiote and Dylan had this this friendship going on because the Venom Symbiote is like, oh, it's Eddie's son. I got to protect him now. Oh, now he's gonna bond to me. Now I gotta now we gotta work together. And now they're just throwing that all away. And it's like, no, I don't want to see Venom go aggressive against it's done. He should not be able to get aggressive anymore.
Yeah, let me put it this way: everything I've seen from especially the Dylan portions of the book, I'm not looking forward to. It's not. There's nothing been saying, "Oh, right, I'm really excited for this series. This is making me so hyped for it." I haven't seen nothing of that. I've just seen. I'm excited to see some of the villains. Like I saw, Anna Kravinoff with, Anti-Venom possibly. Big Mother, Venom fighting Kang in space. So I'm more interested in the Eddie half of stuff, and I don't know if I care about Dylan Venom at all.
Yeah, which is it's not a great feeling to have. Being so apprehensive.
It's not, especially after we've gotten a lot of good content.
Yeah, it's like
we've been spoiled. Let's be honest.
Yeah. I mean, you consider as long as we've had this podcast going, just how many number ones we've seen. How many new Venom series we've been exposed to, and our feelings for each new series as it played out. We started out with the Costa series, which we had no idea what was going to happen. We didn't realize
we were punching the dick.
Yeah, and so it was this completely unknown, and we were still excited for it, even though we were like, well, what happened to Flash? But even still, we're still like, okay, well, this is exciting. There's something new. And then after
I remember Aaron before they announced it was before they announced who the host was. I remember Aaron being so excited. They're marketing it just like classic Lethal Protector, oh no, and so there was hype going into it. Especially it was after Space Knight, which is obviously a very big departure from classic Venom.
Yeah,
and so I think people were excited for a classic looking Venom.
So we had hype at the beginning of Costa. And then once Costa was over and we were getting into Case, there was even more hype because, it was like a palate cleanser from Costa,
Yeah, there was a lot. 2018 as a whole was like it was the fresh start era when Cebulski took over. And so it was with the announcement of Spider-Man going back to basics, away from the slot stuff. You have Donny Cates coming on, and who's apparently a huge fan of Venom, and he's and you have Ryan Stegman, which is a great artist. So I think we were very hyped going into the Donny Cates era, especially when we had the interview.
Oh,
and
yeah. That was great, the interview, because we got a feeling that Venom is in good hands with Donny, and now here we are going into yet another new Venom series, and the hype is just not there.
Yeah, there's just this, from what I've seen of the fans, there's just this sense of hesitance just among everyone.
It's what I'm getting at is it's that it's two writers, one's doing a story for Eddie and the other's doing for Dylan. But it's like, well, when we read 200, it's like, okay, yeah, all right. I'll give Dylan a chance. I'll give him a chance, but I just don't want to see that constant whining, complaining.
Yeah, I don't want the whininess.
And it was already saturated even in a teaser preview pages in the free comic book day issue. And I'm like, please don't let this be the first three issues and into the first arc. Okay. I don't know. I'm going to give it a chance, but already it's
course.
Not.
I think we're all giving it a chance.
Oh yeah.
And I will say again, because we've been very vocal for the last year about Donnie and Ryan's take on the whole with Null. That's done.
Ups and downs. Yeah.
It had ups and downs, and now we're having a breath of fresh air with Extreme Carnage, because now there's no more Null involved. Now there's a new team coming on, and again, I will give it a fair chance. So I am going to be fair regardless.
I'm obligated to see the series through, but I just wish I was more excited about it.
Yep.
All right. So, that's it for this month's review of everything. Join us in our next episode as we review some of the Symbiote comics of September 2021, including the final 3 issues of Extreme Carnage, and then the month after that is something to really look forward to. You know, we got the beginning of the new Venom series, and then
Oh yeah,
and then
Venom, let there be carnage.
finally confirmed.
All right, that's
not
coming out,
moving.
isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, we're gonna see how that episode pans out.
That's gonna be an interesting podcast. And we'll have to see how the film is. I'll try to keep an open mind.
Yep. All right, so you can listen to We Are Venomaniacs on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Music, and iTunes, Audible, and YouTube. We can also be found on Twitter at WAV_podcast. Check out our Discord server where you can geek out with a community of Venomaniacs like us. And as always, thank you to my fellow co-hosts Carlos and Tyler for joining me today.
Thanks for listening, guys.
I'm hoping for an eventual Symbiote satellite title.
And thanks to the Venom site for permitting us to make this podcast under the TVS banner and all of your generous support. And finally, thank you, loyal listeners and fellow Venomaniacs. You guys make an awesome community, and it's an honor to be your voice on the airwaves. Together, we are Venomaniacs.